Jai Shri Krishna. Radhe Radhe. Today is day 24 of the readings of the 252 Vaishnavas, disciples of Sri Gosaiji. Sri Gosaiji ki jai, Aaj ke Anand ki jai ho. And we are commencing with the part 3 of Varta number 4. Again one time, Narayan Das wrote a letter to Sri Gosaiji. It went thus: O Maharaj, here there is no Vaishnav with whom I can speak and discuss without disagreement. The mind cannot be stable without such divine discussion. Please therefore send me such a Vaishnava. He sent a lot of wealth in a cheque along with this letter. The carrier arrived at Adel. Having paid his respects to Sri Gosaiji, he gave him the letter and the cheque. When Sri Gosaiji was reading the letter, Chacha Harivamsji was sitting by him, and he read it out to him. After reading it, Sri Gosaiji told Chacha Harivamsji to go to Narayan Das. Chachaji said, "O Maharaj, on leaving your lotus feet and travelling to Gauda Desh, what will become of me?" Sri Gosaiji replied, "Wherever you go, I will be visible to you at all times." Hearing this, Chacha Harivamsa took leave of Sri Gosaiji and travelled to Gauda Desh to meet with Narayan Das. It took him a few days to reach there. Thus it was that when Narayan Das came home from work at the court, Chacha Harivamsji greeted him with Jai Sri Krishna. Narayan Das got off his horse and very joyfully welcomed Chachaji. Narayan Das held Chachaji's hand and took him home to partake of Mahaprasad. After this, Narayan Das and Chachaji spent the whole rest of the day and all night in divine discussion. Narayan Das did not go to work, and for several days he was totally absorbed in those discussions, and his Seva and taking prasad all came to stand still. He seemed to have gone crazy. In the court, all his work also stood still, since he was not there. Some men came from the court to Narayan Das's house and began to make inquiries. Someone told him that a renunciate had arrived from Mathura and that he had rendered Narayan Das crazy. The men went back to the court and reported this to the king. The king ordered them to return and bring the renunciate back to him, otherwise he should be made to cure Narayan Das and send him back to work. He sent the men off to Narayan Das and Narayan Das's home to pick up Harivamsji. One Vaishnav had heard all this and reported it all to Harivamsji. Harivamsji thought that it would be the best plan to bring Narayan Das back to his senses. Chacha Harivamsa bathed, applied Abhyanga, and then bathed Narayan Das Sri Thakurji, and then made Narayan Das drink that water in which the Lord's feet had been bathed, as well as sprinkling it on his head. Immediately Narayan Das's normality was restored and he began to think straight, Bhav Prakash. Why? Because Abhyanga contains the fruit myrobalan, like a gooseberry, which has the propensity to induce forgetfulness. Translator's note: it can divert the train of thought here from a negative to a positive. The second reason is that devotion gets cooled from imbibing the Lord's foot water. Therefore Narayan Das's agitation was cooled, and soothed by it, he regained full physical and mental health. Translator's note: like coconut oil, when warm it is runny, but when cooled it is solid and stays in one place. Part 3 continued. After Narayan Das told Chachaji that he had experienced much happiness in that state of being, "Why did you bring me back out of it?" he asked. "Will it happen again?" Harivamsji replied, "Now you want it just like that?" Harivamsji was thinking to himself that Narayan Das was not ready to experience that state again, so he warned him, telling him, "For now, you should just go to work at the governmental court. Whilst doing that work, spend as much time as you can serving the Lord. Keep your thoughts focused on Sri Gosaiji's feet. By doing this, the excessive wealth of that court will not become an obstacle." Narayan Das dressed suitably and went off to work. He began to work as he had always done. Harivamsji stayed with Narayan Das for a few more days and then asked for his permission to leave Gauda Desh. He travelled for a few days and arrived in Gokul, where Sri Gosaiji was. He humbly bowed to Sri Gosaiji and then recounted to him all the details of what had happened. Sri Gosaiji heard it all, but kept quiet. On the day that Narayan Das returned to work, the Padshah spent a lot of money in celebration of his return, because he was always very pleased with Narayan Das. Narayan Das's wife, Viram, was very beautiful, and she would dress up nicely before entering into her Sri Thakurji's presence. She did not look like a human being, but rather like a heavenly nymph. Her body was very effulgent. She would do all of Sri Thakurji's seva with her own hands, not keeping any maid to do it for her. She was so tender that if she chewed pan leaves and swallowed them, they showed from the outside of her throat. If she was close, she would be totally evident that she had eaten pan. Still, she did all of her Thakurji's and Vaishnava seva by her own fair hands. Sri Gosaiji frequently praised her. Her Sri Thakurji let her experience the bliss of his divine direct presence. Viram was an accomplished Vaishnava servant of Sri Gosaiji and Sri Thakurji. Part 4. Sri Gosaiji again showered his grace upon Narayan Das by visiting Gaudadesh. He stayed with Narayan Das for 5 or 7 days. A water shortage occurred, and Sri Gosaiji moved camp to a village about 10 miles away, where the water was good. The water was pure and healthy, and so Sri Gosaiji decided to remain there for some time. Narayan Das came there twice a day to have his sight, and then returned to his own village. Then he would complete all the required work in court. This became his daily routine. One day, someone began to gossip about Narayan Das in the court, saying that he went to that village 14 miles away twice daily to see his guru and then came back. One day the Padshah himself asked Narayan Das, "Why do you go to that village twice a day?" Narayan Das replied that his guru was staying in that village, and so he went there to visit him. The Padshah said, "You go there twice a day and still do all your court work?" Narayan Das gave the reply, "It is my duty to go there, and it is my duty to complete all the work here." The Padshah could recognize that Narayan Das was very attached to his guru, and he gave the order, "For as long as your guru remains in that village, you may complete your work from there. You may stay there." Narayan Das was very happy. After this, he would only come back to the court on the 5th or 7th day. One day, the Padshah said to Narayan Das, "Please go and tell your guru that I am anxious to meet him." Narayan Das said, "My guru does not even look at the face of a person of your caste." The Padshah reiterated, "Please just ask him anyway, and let's see what he gives. What answer he gives. Come back and let me know." The Padshah repeated this request over and over until one day Narayan Das said to Sri Gosaiji, "O Maharaj, the Padshah would love to come and see you. He asks me every time I go to the court whether or not I have put his request to you. Please tell me now what I shall tell him." Sri Gosaiji said, "Do not say anything else, but if he asks you, please do not say no." Bhav Prakash. The meaning and purpose of this was that the Padshah was a divine soul. Only a divine soul would have such a longing. His heart's desire needed to be fulfilled. Sri Gosaiji wanted the Padshah to again make the request himself, that he would have, so that he would have the confidence that his hope would be fulfilled and not be disappointed with Narayan Das. This is why Sri Gosaiji gave Narayan Das such an instruction. So we will conclude our reading for today and continue tomorrow with part 4 of Varta, number 4 in the 252 Vaishnav stories. Jai Ho, Jai Jai Shri Radhe.